and welcome to today's episode of Rise Up Voices from the Frontlines. And today's guest is very special to me because he is bringing a window into the world of emergency medicine, which is where my first experiences in first responder life took place. So I want to welcome Kyle Elliott, Paramedic, to the show. Hello.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I think today is going to be really fun because I don't get to talk about the medical world very often, and it's a very unique part of the first responder world, and there's such an extreme spectrum of experiences and emotions and interactions that happen in emergency medicine that it's just super interesting to people who aren't involved in it. So let's start at the beginning. Let's talk a little bit about your childhood and what did you want to be when you grew up?
Honestly, no idea what I wanted to be when I was growing up initially. I mean, maybe medical, maybe helicopter pilot, I mean, typical kid stuff. But so I grew up in Vermont. So for those of you who don't know where Vermont is, I mean, stupidly close to Canada, Northeast. I know, trust me, I've had people literally go like, where's that on a map? And I'm like, really? So grew up in Vermont, went to college in New York, got a degree in biology and chemistry from the State University of New York, came back to Vermont. I originally got my EMT at SUNY Canton. That's when I first started. I was doing first responding. I did interfacilities while I was also going to school. Came back to Vermont, eventually got my advanced EMT, and then eventually got my paramedic. So I've been doing EMS now for, 13, has it almost been almost 14 years? Shit. So, you know, decent upbringing, got a great family, my parents, my older sister. So I've had a great support. Never expected to be on an ambulance, to be brutally honest with you.
Things just happen the way that they happen. Where did you see yourself?
Good question. I originally at one point was pursuing work in the science field, you know, working in laboratories and stuff, which, you know, the work, I love science, I love medicine. It just, the lab work, it wasn't as rewarding to me as when I had been doing first responding, did a little bit of firefighting, you know, teaching the public CPR, that kind of stuff. You know, I love talking to people. I'm a chatterbox. I mean, I think you can kind of get the gist of that right now. But yeah, I mean, it was just very rewarding to me. The funny thing was when I first decided to get my EMT, I was actually working at a hockey rink at my college, and somebody fell during public skate. Didn't have ice packs, so I just packed snow. I'm like, I've seen this before because I worked at a hockey rink growing up, you know, put it on the ankle. And then the local campus rescue squad, they said, hey, we could use someone like you. And I thought, never thought rescue squad. And then I eventually got my EMT. I became hooked. And here I am now, you know, and I had no idea I was going to wind up here. So
coming into the field with what you consider basic problem solving skills, but the world around you goes, hey, how'd you think of that? How did you come up with that? It's an interesting thing because people that are in the field don't actually consider that a characteristic that's unique to them. Do you experience that in the real world where you're like, but that's so obvious?
Yeah, I mean, you know, some people kind of judge their medical knowledge off Grey's Anatomy or whatever TV show. And I'm sure you might have seen this where it's like, let me put it to you this way. With EMS, and I think you may agree with me, so hospital setting, very controlled. You have resources at your disposal, right? You have respiratory, you have a cardiologist. With EMS, it's like, well, here's a box, here's some tools, have at it, good luck. You know, it's just, you got to make do with what you got. And even some of the wilderness first responders, I mean, I'm going to throw that out there. I mean, those folks having to go out there and make do with what they got out in the wilderness. I mean, it's also similar, I'm sure, with law enforcement and firefighting. I know there's different, you know, tricks of the trade, but with EMS, you know, there's times where it's like, hey, like I recognize that this person has, for example, low blood sugar. hey, guess what you don't give them? Insulin. But you can tell the family that over and over, and they'll be like, oh, well, the medicine fixes their blood sugar, and they'll just give insulin right away, and it'll drop it more. And then you keep showing up there about 3-4 times within the course of the week and keep having to coach them. But, not everyone has the same knowledge as we do. And, it's, some of it is, you want to slap yourself in the forehead, but, other times it's like, okay, I can understand a little bit, where you get confused, that kind of thing. So, but biggest thing, compassion, even though deep down you're like screaming, why did you do that? Like that kind of stuff,
Right. So being first on scene quite often, how important is it? Everybody always talks about make sure the scene is safe and make sure that, you're not taking risks. My experience was that's an idealistic environment and you really have very little control over that. And so how much time do you think in the real world is spent on doing all those policies and procedures and step by step, making sure everything is going to be safe for you? And how much do you think is that gut reaction instinct where you just go do what needs to be done to get it done?
I mean, it depends. I mean, a lot of times when we hear from dispatch, sometimes with, for example, psychiatric, if they could potentially pose a risk to themselves or others, then of course we have law enforcement coming. If you're headed to a motor vehicle collision, you're going to have fire and law enforcement. Big scene safety thing. Not everyone likes to respect emergency vehicles on the interstate. I've definitely been almost clipped by cars. I actually had one at one of my services. I had a call on an interstate and they were trying to tell the car, it was an Audi. I remember this. It was a white Audi, tearing ass down. Had to have been about 70, 75. They were telling him to slow down, nearly clip a bunch of us, and he gives us a finger. It's like, all right, man, like, cool, screw you. But, just your size of dispatch, when they tell you, like, if it's potentially, dangerous, like if there's a gunshot wound, well, you don't know if there's a shooter out there still. So you have law enforcement go. If there's motor vehicle collision, you have other resources at your disposal. You may not always get that, but a lot of times, especially with the service I'm with now, more populated area, whole variety of things. Law enforcement's good about that. Fire's good about that. But yeah, it's all dependent. But in some places, you may not get that. I've definitely been there before. And you kind of just make do with what you got. Usually the rule of thumb is if you don't see something and your partner's like, hey, something seems really sketchy about this. Like, usually we were taught, like, have a code word, like, hey, can you grab the purple bag for me? Which means get the fuck out. Or something along those lines. But it's all dependent. If you take a look around you, if they seem pretty calm, cool, collected, and they happen to have like a hunting rifle across the room. Like I'm from a place where the people hunt all the time. Like especially during the seasons, then it's not worrying. But if someone's really aggravated and you notice there's weaponry, around you, then maybe you should kind of back off a little bit and wait for, extra resources. So
have you ever been off duty and had an emergency situation that you had to jump into?
All the damn time, without fail, I swear. I was joking around with one of my buddies. I told him, I was like, dude, I can never escape this damn job, even when I'm trying to take a day off. Constantly. Car accidents, I pull over, check and see if people are okay. I try not to be the guy who's like, oh, look at me, I'm a paramagician. It's one of those like, hey, do you need a hand? Or there have been times where I shit you not, I get done with my night shift. I'm headed home, and on my route home, crash, patient on the ground. Like a auto versus pedestrian. And I see one of my department's trucks there. Literally, I'm like, all right, I'm on the phone with my buddy. I'm like, hey man, I got to hang out with you. And he's just like, well, go play. I'm like, all right, pull over, get out. I literally walk up to the one medic who's over the patient. I tap her on the shoulder. I said, hey, you need a hand? She gets all excited and was like, yeah, absolutely. And, help them get settled. That happens. Knock on wood. No, no witness cardiac arrest on my behalf. But a lot of it for me, I mean, there's been some like falls but a lot of it has been car accidents, and both where I'm at now, my previous agencies, it just happens,
Right. So we're going to talk about something I've never gotten to talk about on this show. And
Sure.
it's a really funny topic, but it's also a really serious topic, because on every team, there is the guy that gets labeled the Black Cloud. There's the guy that is the Murphy's Law guy. And I don't know if that's the universe or what energy is behind that, but my poor husband is that guy also. So let's talk a little bit about that perception and that experience, since we've had that conversation a little bit, that you're that guy in your world.
I am that guy. Like, holy shit. Everyone has one. I mean, EMS, for those who may not know, we are very superstitious. That's why you never drop the Q word unless you want to get sucker punched. You don't say certain phrases. You don't repeat a frequent flyer's name. I mean, we're very superstitious about that. I happen to be a Black Cloud. Don't know why. Don't know how. With the department I'm at now, the week off of orientation, I get multiple critical calls within 1 week. And people looked at me like, the hell's up with this guy? He's got to chill out. Ranging from, I had an entrapment vehicle plowed through an apartment complex into someone's apartment, pinning them onto the couch with an hour and a half extrication. We had a pediatric trauma arrest. We had a witnessed arrest. I mean, it was just one after another. At least my crew, we've had multiple cardiac arrests. I've had multiple DOAs. I mean, it's just, no matter where I go, it follows me. And I started getting that reputation. People are like, hey, I want to ride with you because I want to see something. I'm like, no, stop it. And everyone has one. And sometimes if you're lucky, if you get the right pairing together, all hell breaks loose. It's happened here. It's happened here. It's happened in other services. One of my best friends back in Vermont, who I worked with, like, him and I, we get on a truck and it's just everything caves in on itself. And there are also times where, if you pair with the right person, everything's nice. Everything's wonderful. But it happens everywhere. If you ask anyone in a service, in EMS service, and sometimes even fire, there's always that one guy. And either people are like, hell yeah, I want to see that, or fuck this guy. Like, no, I'm up all night because of you, so.
So for those of you that don't know the Q word.
No, gosh, you're making me nervous. Stop it.
It's the no calls are coming in. Everything is on the down low. Everything is chill, right? So if you can't figure that out, we're not going to go there.
It's the opposite of loud.
Right?
The worst is when patients say it.
So another funny thing, the full moon. How does the full moon affect emergency medical services?
Sometimes good, sometimes bad. Sometimes you sleep all night if you're working the night shift, sometimes not. I mean, I've also worked 24s and 36s, so, as well as 12s that I'm doing now. It depends. I try to ignore it, pretend it doesn't exist, especially for that night.
It sounds like superstition and it sounds silly and crazy to people that aren't there, but the emergency room that I used to work at would literally have more people on staff and have more resources at the ready, because inevitably we hit that night shift. If it's a full moon, people's behavior goes a little haywire. And whether that's
I believe it,
people's beliefs or actually some kind of influence, it makes a difference.
I think so.
Super funny. Let's go to a positive side of things. what has been the most like amazing call that you got to be a part of?
I don't know. I mean, I've had some pretty rewarding ones. I can't really think of one in particular. I think the very rewarding ones, I mean, you don't have to, push all these meds or do all these crazy things. I mean, it could be even as simple as keeping somebody comfortable, especially when they're scared. Yeah, it's cool to, say, be like, hey, I'm calling a STEMI alert on something. STEMI, heart attack, that you can see on the monitor for people who don't know. So being able to identify that and then giving all these meds and they kind of feel better and they have a good outcome. Like that's great. But I think some of the rewarding parts, I can't think of one in particular. Of course, you see all the glory calls, which, blood, guts, and glory. But I think some of the rewarding ones, honestly, are, keeping them calm, keeping them cool, keeping them collected. And in return, you're also going to be improving their vitals too. Like their heart rate's going to go down, their blood pressure is going to go down, their breathing rate's going to be normal. And you'd be surprised with just simple coaching of just, hey, you're safe. All right, you're in good shape. Let's calm your breathing down. And I mean, the occasional thank you is really nice. We actually had an entrapment, the one I mentioned, the entrapment on the couch with the 1.5-hour extrication. I didn't get a chance to see her, but she wound up showing up to the fire department where our truck was located and came in and said, hey, thank you. Like being able to see that and the fact that, seeing something as horrific as what it looked like have a positive outcome from that. And also the fact of just seeing how people can change, and be, it's incredible watching someone's heart rate go from like sky high and you're just like super calm and it just drops back down to normal. And, but no, I mean, that's part of the reason why, I joined this field is just to me, it's rewarding to, people are like, oh, you save lives. I'm like, no, I'm just here to help. But it's just because in my opinion, people aren't going to remember like, oh, you pushed 100 micrograms of fentanyl and then you did a 20 gauge IV, you did this. They're going to remember that, oh, hey, that medic was either A, super sweet and caring and calm, or B, the biggest prick you've ever met. You know what I mean? So it's one of those things. That's what I try to keep in mind.
Right. This is a job that is perceived to be all about skills, but really it's as much about relationships or more about relationships and community. How do you?
Yeah. So the way I see it, you can be a rock star with EKGs. You can land every single IV. You can diagnose every condition under the sun. But if you can't have compassion and empathy and kindness towards other, you are going to fail. I guarantee it. You need that in this field. I have seen providers before throughout my career who are like the rude and kind of over it, and that disheartens me because it doesn't give a good perception. Like we're here at their worst moment. Like, yeah, of course we're going to be patient with them, and they could be hooting, hollering, screaming, calling you all sorts of names. Like, come on, you've heard that all before. I'm sure you throw that around with your friends or whatever, but at the same token, it's like you got to be patient. But yeah, you could be a rock star with all your skills, but if you can't handle people, if you can't be interpersonal, compassionate, what have you, you're going to fall flat on your face. I guarantee that.
I think that's a missing piece in all of the first responder professions in the way that they're seen by the general public, is that they don't just do a job. They don't just have a skill set. Half or more of their job is just being human and just connecting with other humans. It's not always an emergency situation. It's not always a response. It's not always a crisis. How much time on a normal day, like an average day, I know there's not really an average day, but just in generally speaking, how much time do you spend waiting for those moments when you have to be on 100% and in that crisis response mode?
I don't think I really wait for it. It's one of those things where, I don't know, maybe, I don't know if military has something similar with their training or law enforcement or what have you. But when you recognize something that is essentially like a life threat or something that's potentially could kill somebody, that's when it's almost like you flip a switch. And it's just a lot of repetition from training. But, a lot of it is you flip a switch. A lot of it is when you interact with a person, but also part of it is just looking. Now, it's what they call the primary impression, according to the NREMT. I love the skill sheets. They're just checklist. It's great. So you can if you literally walk into a room. So if I'm looking at you right now, I take a look at you, it's like, okay, she's talking, she's smiling, she seems okay. I walk into a room and they're like pale, cool, diaphoretic, sweaty, and they just look like dog shit. You're like, okay, they're sick. I need to snap into it. But if they're talking to me and they're like, hey, I don't feel good, my stomach hurts, it's been going on, you have a little bit more time to be a little bit more like ease into it. But if it's an immediate life threat, yes, you can be compassionate, but you also have to be aggressive with those treatments just to prevent, further life threats from happening. And I'm sure you can see that in other fields too. And I know with like law enforcement and like fire, from what I've seen some amazing folks there, and even military. Like I've seen some amazing compassion from these people, and even dispatchers, right? Like dispatchers don't get enough credit. Those folks, when it comes to compassion, and they have to do that every single time. They don't get to see the person. They just hear frantic, phone calls of like, oh my God, my mom is dying, and trying to keep them de-escalated and calm and trying to get as much information. Like they deserve a lot more props than, a lot of people may or may not know. But it's literally you're looking at the person, and that kind of dictates whether or not you're just like, oh shit, I got to do something, or okay, like we can ease things down a little bit. So
do you tend to work double shifts, or what does your shift work look like?
So right now, the department I'm in, so I work night shifts. So I work 12s, but previously in my career, other departments, I've worked 24-hour shifts. I worked 36-hour shifts. We kind of have a rotating schedule. One week we work like Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And then the next week we work Wednesday, Thursday. So it kind of cycles. Now there are some departments that do 24 on, 72 off. I mean, it all depends on the department. But I've worked both 24s, I've worked 12s, I worked 36s. I mean, like the 24s can be a little bit brutal, depending on where you are, call volume. The service I was running 24s and 36s on was a combined 911, interfacility, and long distance transport. So sometimes you got your face bashed in, other times not so much. Here, where I'm running, is 12 hours on the truck that I'm on, and it's all 911 county based, so there's some nights where, hey, not so terrible. Other nights you're like, holy shit, what happened? So
not so terrible means there's time between your calls, right?
Yeah, relatively speaking. There are some nights where you have just enough time to either get that report finished, take a leak, finish that energy drink or water, and then boom, you're out the door again. There are other nights where once in a long time you actually get to rest a little bit. But there are some nights where it's just nonstop. And those are the nights where you want to pull your hair out by the end of it. But I mean, at the end of the day, we love what we do. We're a sick, twisted bunch, but I mean, we still love what we do. So
let's talk about humor. How do you guys treat each other? What's your fun interaction stuff that you guys do?
Oh, we're very playful, obviously. Can range anything from, hey, sweetie, how are you, to fuck you. I've had partners throughout my career where literally you look at each other and it's like, you just nod and you go, fuck you. And then it's kind of like the good morning.
Right.
There are times where it's like, hey, honey, or hey, hey, sweetie, just kind of like just being playful and stuff. Just giving each other hell, just poking at each other. A lot of playful banter. And when you're doing a shift change, just giving them grief, like, well, why'd you do that? Like, geez, you're leaving me this truck with this mess. Meanwhile, it's like immaculate. Just giving each other a hard time. And it's really nice. And what I learned, at least from my understanding from my career, if people aren't picking on you, either you piss somebody off or they really don't like you. That's just kind of the nature of it. I've definitely seen some people when they walk in, everyone just quiets down. And they're like, good morning or good evening. And just nobody does anything. And it's like, oh, they did something, so, and it's the same thing. I mean, I played hockey growing up, so it was a similar environment, but it's all in good fun. Nobody means any harm by it. Nobody's malicious about it.
I know, right? I just had a conversation with somebody about sensitivity training and what happens when someone comes in and tries to do the, well, this is sexual harassment and we don't talk like this. And people are like, oh my God. It like calling someone a dickhead is not sexual harassment in the firehouse. Right.
I mean,
have you
in all fairness, I just keep thinking of the Rescue Me scene with the sensitivity training, and it kills me every single time. I can't stop laughing, but we're usually we're all on the same page. We know not to cross lines. We all know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate. And depending who your friends are, if you're working with one of your friends, and obviously at your discretion, out of earshot, interact as if you're, outside of work, but never in front of a patient. Whenever we're in front of a patient, we're completely professional. Sometimes a little bit of playful banter that, may make the patient laugh or what have you, but nothing outright, vulgar or anything disrespectful, to the patient. But when we're at the station and we're just giving each other shit, it's just, we're all friends and we're very close. So that's just the way it goes. Nobody's complained. Nobody's really gone to any higher ups. I mean, just because we all know, obviously it's like a general understanding what's acceptable, what's not acceptable,
So you consider do you consider them your family?
Honestly, yeah. Where I moved, so I actually wound up moving to South Carolina, so 1,000 miles away from home. Didn't know anybody. And I slowly became really good friends with people down here. And the more that I interact with these people and I get to know them and I know kind of where they're from or kind of how they act, what their interests are, you become, and you're in close quarters with them constantly. You're constantly seeing them. So you kind of form a family, whether you like it or not. Yes, it's a job. Of course it's a job, but we all become so close, and it's not necessarily trauma bonding, but it's more of we spend so much time together that you essentially morph into one screwed up dysfunctional family. And I already know that I call it my tribe, a lot of these people from my department, and they've been, since I've been down here, had my ups and downs, had some of my struggles, and these folks have been just incredible. Even when you interact with people from the hospital too, that decide to, kind of come in and join us as well, and law enforcement and fire, and everyone just kind of comes together. And these people you'd be amazed how supportive and loving these folks are. As screwed up and, some of the most fucked up thing we've said, these are some of the most supportive people I've met and some of the most loving people. And you may not see that, underneath the uniform, and we have to keep our composure and, lot of these people have a big heart, and people cry. I cried after a really nasty call. People cry. People just care about what they do. They care about others. They check in with each other. I've had my friends text me being like, "Hey man, you didn't seem like yourself today. What's going on?" And they're just, it's my tribe, as I call them. And, I'm very grateful for those folks.
So you've been on the job for a while, and just meeting you today, people are going to see you as, having a sense of humor and being very vibrant and being just in love with the work that you do. There's a dark side to all of that. So you've had your struggles with mental wellness, and having those hard calls and those tough experiences. What was the time frame, and what was the experiences that you first realized that you were struggling a little bit with the effects of the work?
So when I was in my early 20s, so I didn't really handle my stress very well. It was like early to mid 20s. And I was working in a hospital setting, and I had my first real deal pediatric code on a 2-week-old. That kind of pushed me over the edge. Peds calls, and I've listened to episodes of this podcast, and whether it be law enforcement, fire, EMS, it's always the kids that tend to be the hardest. I've also dealt with other trauma with, people who I know getting injured or really ill. But I remember my first real deal pediatric code in the hospital. That kind of pushed me over the edge, and I didn't know how to handle my stress. And I will admit that I was working the night shift on that, and when we had transferred the infant to the transfer team to be sent to the children's hospital, I was stupid. I was very angry. The day crew comes in, they're all vibrant. They're like, "Good morning." I was telling them literally, "Fuck off, leave me alone." I went home and back to my apartment, and I drank a 6-pack in less than 30 minutes to get myself to sleep. It obviously dumb move, but I didn't know how to handle my stress. And then other calls start to culminate, and it lingers, and I've had to obviously go through therapy. Been doing therapy for years, and go through different techniques, and just, it's things like that. And knowing what I know now, realizing that obviously substances are not the way to go. They're just going to, mask the problem, if not make it worse. I've had another really nasty pediatric call at the department I'm at now, and I reached out to people, and I made a conscientious effort to stay away from alcohol. I was going to the gym constantly. I was watching what I was eating. I was, talking to people. And I think that's a big thing to do. Is mental health, I think, has progressed for EMS, like mental health awareness, compared to what it was maybe 10, 20 years ago. Going from the mentality of, well, if you can't handle it, get the fuck off the truck, to, hey, if something's bothering you, you got to talk to somebody, because we need resiliency. We need more people here. We need to keep you here. You're good. You're good at what you do. You love it. What you do. We don't want you to leave. And being able to reach out to people and connect. And that's where, my tribe was there for me during that difficult call. And even when people are like, "Hey, I thought this call was really screwed up. Can we talk about it?" Sure. And staying, for me, it was staying away from the alcohol, staying away from that kind of thing. Any sort of real self-destructive behaviors, any sort of thought of like, I can't handle this anymore. Just being able to reach out to those people. For me, it was definitely the pediatrics that was most difficult for me. I mean, I've seen traumas, I've seen gunshot wounds, DOA, suicide, and it's all kind of a learning lesson, not just about kind of like the nature of things, but understanding that, for example, I had a male who he pointed a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger, made the entire front of his vehicle just covered with brain matter. And seeing that made me realize, okay, what are the implications? What is the aftermath of being like, I want to kill myself, and then following through with it? How distraught the people were who were there, seeing what it looks like in the flesh, and being like, this is the consequence if you decide to go through this. And it was a wake-up call, and kind of realizing that, life is short and you're not guaranteed tomorrow, makes me appreciate things more, and to not really take things for granted, and to be like, hey, take care of yourself. When you're getting into these difficult situations, like liquor's not going to fix it. Substances like, drugs, whether prescribed or not, isn't going to fix it. Going around and doing stupid stuff, whether it be drunk driving, cutting, burning, any of that stuff, suicide should not be an option. That kind of stuff is, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So why would you do that now and try to mask the problem when you could just deal with the problem at its source? It's like kind of putting a Band-Aid on a massive wound that's hemorrhaging. The Band-Aid being, the alcohol or the pills or what have you, the weed, and instead of like, hey, why don't we stitch up this massive wound and clean it and take care of it so that, yes, you'll have a scar and you'll never forget it, but at least you'll be healed. It's still going to be there, but it's not going to hurt as much.
Is there a story behind the tattoo on your wrist?
Oh, this one? So I don't think this is an audio medium. So I have an EKG around my wrist, and it is what a normal heart rate is supposed to be, normal sinus rhythm. So I got this for multiple reasons. So the first one being, it keeps things in perspective. What's important? The fact that my heart's still beating, I'm healthy, I'm alive. The second one being, I am passionate and am in love with my career. I consider it as a part of me at this point. That's just kind of who I am. I'm a very kind of caring, compassionate person, and I love EMS. I love medicine, and I love helping people. I know that's cliche, and you can give me as much shit as you want, but it's the truth. And it just helps keep things in perspective. And then the third thing is to kind of remind myself to stay on track. Stay on track with your goals, stay on track with your dreams. It's a reminder that you're doing something you love. Keep going. Keep making yourself better. So it's multifaceted. And so this EKG tattoo, I made it like a bracelet. And so no matter where I move my hand, it'll still be there. I've had compliments from nurses, doctors. I actually had one cardiologist nerd out, which was pretty cool.
They always have a deeper meaning. So I had to give you a little surprise question there to.
No, I mean, that's cool. I mean, I've had people ask me that.
So what would be the most important message that you would want to leave with our folks before we got off today, who may be considering a career as a first responder or who are struggling in their career?
So, all right, I'll put the first one out here. So I'm going to be blunt. You're going to see some shit. If you decide to do this, whether it be law enforcement, firefighting, EMS, even military, even dispatching as well, healthcare, anything that's dealing with people or any sort of emergency or any sort of real trauma, you're going to see some shit. That's just the nature of the beast. The biggest thing for that is to utilize your resources. I mean, obviously, keep up on your training. You better hope that you're not in it for the blood and the guts and the glory. It's a matter, especially with the first responding, you have to be good around people, be able to talk to people, have a conversation. No one ever calls 911 on a good day. Let's make that clear. You're having to deal with people in crisis when you may be like, oh, this is bullshit at 3:00 in the morning. You show up and it's their worst moment of their life. And you have to show compassion, and just be able to show some sort of empathy. And, you know, of course, when you do see the awful shit, you have to reach out, speak to people. If something's bothering you, talk to your friends, talk to your superiors. Like, hey, no one's going to judge you. It's 2023. No one's going to judge you for that. I mean, this job has a high burnout rate for a reason. And a lot of other similar fields have a very high burnout. And from this job, and just in general, and it doesn't matter if it's any sort of trauma from first responding or from life, you know, personal experiences, past trauma, substances aren't going to fix it. You know, like I said, it's just the Band-Aid on the huge wound. It's just a temporary fix, and it's a distraction, if anything. And you know, doing the healthy things, whether it be taking care of yourself, therapy, if you need to, meds, you know, and just taking care of yourself. And from this job, definitely life is too damn short, you know, and you're not even guaranteed tomorrow. Don't take shit for granted. If you have an opportunity to thank somebody, you know, one of your friends, hey man, I appreciate you. Again, cliche, you can eye roll all you want. That's fine. But at the same token, you know, you're not guaranteed tomorrow. I've literally been to DOAs where you show up and it's, you know, old man, old woman, or whomever in rigor mortis, curled up in bed. They, you know, literally dying in their sleep. Or I had one gentleman, he had his hands crossed behind his head, his feet were crossed, he was comfortable. You know, you're not guaranteed to wake up tomorrow. And, you know, especially EMS, death is another thing that, you know, kind of a taboo subject among non-EMS personnel, but death is death. It's part of the process. You know, there shouldn't be any sort of negative connotations, any sort of positive connotations. It's just death. It's there. It exists. It's part of the cycle. It's part of what eventually ends. And it's just a nature of the job, you know, and it may seem kind of disturbing at first, but after a while, once you get exposed to it, you kind of understand that it's not pretty. It's never pretty. It's not like what you see in the movies. And that's especially with people who aren't even in the field, don't really understand that death does not look pretty. But if you're really interested in pursuing this career, it takes work. It takes compassion. They're not going to remember what meds you pushed, what IV you used, what crazy maneuver you did. It's just how you addressed them, how you treated them, how you treated their family. Because believe it or not, families will remember that. Because even if the patient dies, the family will remember how you acted. And so keep yourself in check with that. And I know it's kind of a lot, but it's multifaceted. And I honestly think it is a very rewarding field. And even with law enforcement, I've seen some amazing law enforcement folks who can talk people down. I've seen firefighters who super compassionate, can talk people down, help people out, not even just lifting, but talking and calming them down. I mean, there are good folks out there. And it's a great field. And that's why I'm so passionate about it. And it's just, as long as you can keep yourself in check and can keep that in mind, you'll do just fine. If you don't think you can do it, there's no shame in not joining and being in an office. I mean, that's why they're there.
Do you have your plan B in place for just in case you get hurt on the job, or just in case you come to a place where you're like, you know that this is time? Do you have, what's your alternative career for when you retire? Whatever brings.
What, you mean I can't work on an ambulance with a cane? Honestly, you know, a lot of folks in our field will go into nursing. Eventually, it would be really cool to do flight, but we'll see what the future brings. But there's always the nursing route, similar skills, similar medicine, You're not constantly going in and out of a truck. You're not constantly, climbing up and down stairs. It's a little bit more of a controlled setting. And you do get that education and further training in things that maybe, we don't see out in the field. So that's always an option. But staying in medicine, and dealing, interacting with people and just dealing with overall medicine and science. And, I think that's something I'm going to definitely stick with till hopefully I retire.
Thank you so much for being here with us today. Is there anything else?
Thank you. Honestly, I give a lot of kudos to, the law enforcement folks, fire, dispatch, military. I mean, I interact with these folks constantly, and you meet some really cool people. You meet some really wonderful folks out there, and it's cool because we're all one. We all work together at the end of the day. And I also enjoy this podcast, so I can't thank you enough for having me here. And hopefully I can continue to listen to more.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, everybody, for being with us this week on Rise Up, Voices from the Frontlines. If you have any questions or comments that you want us to answer, just pop them below on whatever app you're listening to our podcast from, and hopefully we will be able to answer those questions for you. We love to complete these conversations. If you want to support this podcast, you can easily do so at battle2be.org, BATTLE2be.org. This is funded by a 501c3 nonprofit organization that serves those who serve country and community. If you don't know about Battle to Be, just head on over to that website and check us out. If you are in need of our services, message us. We are very quick to respond and we will listen. And if you would like to support our services, you can make a donation that is tax deductible. We are always looking for sponsors for this podcast and for our programs. So if you would like to become one of our brand partners, just let us know. And again, thank you so much. And I look forward to seeing you next week.